All right, we're going to rapidly go over the different responsive concepts available within Flex. You're going to need to use them and probably mix and match them to create content that restacks and reflows and resizes as your canvas changes size. To give you an easy visual of these different concepts, I've essentially set up a diagram. You can see I have a white canvas, and then within the white canvas, I have this pink section, and then a light gray group and a dark gray rectangle. But before we go over responsive concepts, let's talk about what isn't responsive. So when you first place something on a canvas or in a section, its position is set to absolute, which means that nothing can affect its position, not even the changing size of a canvas. So looking at my smaller variants, you can see that this group and the rectangle within it are starting to bleed off the page. They're still there, they're just not visible because their position is absolute. So even if the canvas changes size, the position doesn't change. Similar to absolute position is fixed size. So that means when an object is first placed on the canvas or within a group, it's set to a fixed number of pixels for its width and height. And similar to absolute positioning, a changing canvas size will not change the size of an object with fixed sizing. As I mentioned, absolute position and fixed size are not responsive. And that's because responsive content dynamically reacts or responds as the canvas changes size. Essentially, to make an object responsive, you need to assign responsive behaviors to it, so it behaves a certain way with a changing canvas size. So let's quickly overview what those different responsive behaviors are and what they do. Before we jump into them, let's first call back to something that we covered in the sections overview video, which is the content hierarchy in Flex, which means that content responds and reacts to its parent container. At the top of the hierarchy, you have the canvas, and then sections, then groups, and then within groups are individual assets such as images, videos, or text. If a group is nested within another group, the outer group would be considered the parent container. Or if an image isn't inside a group or a section, the canvas would be its parent container. It's crucial to understand this simple principle before assigning responsive behaviors to an object. With that established, let's look at responsive positioning first. The first responsive positioning type, and probably the one you use the most, is stack, which means that objects will stack along with its sibling objects within a container. Let's look at my gray squares as an example. I have 4 of them within this light gray group. With all of them selected, I can change their position to stack. And as you can see, that stacks them in a top to bottom fashion. Stacked objects cannot overlap with each other, which is crucial as content is always dynamically resizing and restacking as a canvas changes size. With the group selected, I can decide if I want its content to lay out in a vertical row or a horizontal column. Then, as I turn on Wrap in the inspector panel, you can see that the content that reaches the edge of the group will automatically restack onto another line. Next is fixed position, which means an object is fixed to a specific location within the screen viewport rather than just the canvas. So if I were to select my group and change its position to fixed, you can see that this blue dotted outline represents the screen viewport in which our viewers will look at this experience. And as it is set up now, my group is 20 pixels away from the center line of the viewport and 24 pixels away from the top of the viewport. Fixed is perfect for things like nav bars or help icons in the corner of the screen. And finally, we have sticky to parent position, which is very similar to fixed, but it means that the content is only fixed while the viewer is scrolling through the section it's living within. Here's a really good example of the difference between sticky and fixed. So when building something like a landing page, you'll probably use fixed position for the nav bar at the top and stack position to stack your sections of content. You'll probably also use stack for the content within the section. That way the content will stay organized and reflow as the canvas changes size. Next, let's go over responsive sizing, which is how an object's width and height will scale as the canvas changes size. And just like responsive positioning, sizing is always in relation to an object's parent container on the content hierarchy. So if an object is within a group, it will size in relation to that group. Or if it's directly on the canvas, it will size in relation to the canvas. In Flex, you have a few sizing options you can choose from, and each of them answers a different question of how you want the content to behave. Do you want the object to stay a fixed size in pixels? Do you want it to scale proportionately with its parent container? Do you want it to fill all the space available to it? Or do you want a container to hug the content within inside of it? Let's start with relative sizing. It's pretty simple and it's one you're probably going to use a lot, which basically means that an object will be a relative percentage of its parent container. So with my gray square here, you can see that its current width is set to 181 pixels. If I were to change it to relative, it's now 24.8% of the total width of the gray group. I could then bump that up to 45%, and it's now 45% of the total width of the gray group. I could then apply the exact same rule to the group itself. And let's go ahead and change that to 32%. So now the gray group is 32% of the width of the pink section. So regardless of how my canvas changes size, it will always remain 32% of the section. Let's say I were to change the group's width to 85% of the width of the section. You can see that because the rectangle also has a relative size, it automatically expanded along with the group. This is how content dynamically resizes and scales with a changing canvas width. Next we have fill, which means a piece of content will fill the available space within its parent container. It's important to note that an object must be set to stack in order to apply fill. So for example, if I were to apply fill to my rectangle here, you can see that it is filling all of the available space within the gray group. Now I have 4 squares within the gray group. If I were to select them all and change all of their width to fill, they will equally distribute across the available space within the group. This is perfect for things like tab menus or menu options on a nav bar. You can see as I manually resize the group, the content within it will dynamically change to keep the fill sizing. And finally, you have fit content sizing, which means that a container will dynamically resize to always fit the content within it. So with my gray group selected, I'll change its height from a fixed number of pixels to fit content. And now it is the exact same size as the rectangles within it. This is really important for things like text box or tiles with a bunch of content. As you add more text, the text box itself will grow to contain that text, so you don't have to manually resize anything.